like to welcome everybody today for coming out. I'm happy to see a lot of old friends that came out, a lot of new faces that came out, a lot of our dignitaries and guest speakers that are here today, some which are now over 7 minutes late that'll be here. Yes, I'm diming them out. My name's Craig Walton. I'm the Chief of Police here at Cal Expo. I have probably the greatest job in the world. Not only do I get to be a police officer, but I get to work in a place that we have events where we bring people together for opportunities to talk about what's happened in the past, what the future looks like, and today it's to remember 23 years ago, September 11th. That day changed the course of the United States forever. Every year we talk about where we were when that happened, this little bit of remembrance. And you see a little nostalgia in people's eyes, good or bad. It was sad, I agree. It was one of the worst days in the history of the United States. But the great part about it is it helped unify and calcify the great people, the heroes that were there, the heroes that are working every day, the heroes that are still on the job that are here. I have to reflect myself. I was at work. I worked for a small department south of here. I won't tell you the name of the department was Gulf. Everybody remember? Okay, the kids here aren't going to remember. We had those huge satellite dishes, not DirecTV, but satellite dishes bigger than that ball right there. I had an officer that worked with me who was a satellite engineer. That was his real life job, wanted to be a policeman, became a policeman, and he helped hack the satellite system. So we have live feeds of the East Coast, and we're sitting in the briefing room, which was about probably 8 chairs and 2 8-foot tables, small department, and we have the East Coast feed on. You see the reporters, because nobody's watching, the cameras are still running, the reporter's over there picking his nose, picking his teeth, whatever they're doing, because the live feed's going out, but nobody's recording it yet. And we see the first plane fly into the Twin Towers. And you hear the cameraman, and remember, this is a live feed. He goes, "Oh, beep." There's no beep. And he tells the reporter who's standing with his back to the Twin Towers, "Hi." He tells the reporter whose back is to the Twin Towers that a plane just flew into the Twin Towers. And the reporter turns around in huge surprise, and the camera hits the ground. That was the beginning of what we saw. That was the beginning of the feeds that everybody else saw played over and over. But what it did is it brought everybody to bear on the fact that we had a terrorist attack on U.S. soil. Let me tell you how my day went. My day was spectacular. Showed up to work at 5 o'clock, got dressed, got my patrol car ready. Shift starts at 6. I'm on my 5th or 6th cup of coffee for the day. And no, cops don't eat donuts. I eat cookies or bagels. Eat something a little sweeter than donuts. And about an hour after the first plane hits the tower, my chief of police, who I have to tell you at the time, and still is one of the greatest leaders I've ever worked for or with, he walks in, hair disheveled, not in uniform, which is completely out of character for this man. And he looks at me, calls me by my first name, which is really an oddity, says, "Craig, call them all in. And tell them to bring their families until we figure out what's going on." That's how my day started. So moving forward, how did the rest of you, the kids that weren't here yet, wouldn't have that day, how did that look for day effort at the Twin Towers? We watched the recovery efforts at the plane crashes. We watched all the efforts of the United States coming together. What did that do for us in the future? It took us to a war. and it took us back to the forefront of the country, the great country we've always been. Mindy, bless you for spending your time there. Everyone else that was on ground zero or at ground zero, I appreciate what you did, but don't forget about the heroes that were here on the ground protecting all of you when all of that was going on. Not just the police, the fire, the paramedics, but the soldiers that were here to help us. I don't know if you remember, we had National Guard guarding the bridges. We had the National Guard at the ports. Not just the police, because we never have enough police or firemen. We had everybody out doing their job. And I thank all of them, and that's part of what we're here to remember today. So, my minute and 80 seconds, little joke there. They told me a minute and a half to get my opening statement done. Sergio, where are you? I'd like to introduce Sergio Robles, council member from Elk Grove. He will be taking over, and I have the utmost confidence and faith. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you, Chief.
Good morning, everyone. You know, got the call and was asked to be MC today, and I've been lost in words trying to figure out, right? When 9/11 occurred, I was only 8 years old. I was in third grade. And for me, it was, what could I share? What insight could I give on that day of remembrance? And I just remember being in class, looking at the TV, and all the teachers running around. We were kids. We didn't know what was going on. We were exposed to something so horrific, so terrifying. And I remember going home and asking my mom, what's going on? And in the Latino community, we weren't even sure. We had tears coming down our eyes, we were terrified. But one thing I do remember is that we were all Americans that day. We all united, we all checked in on our neighbors, and we all checked in on our families. So I hope for today, as we continue this ceremony, that we would remember each and every one who was lost that day. That we would dig deep, and that we would remember the honor and integrity and the sacrifice and everything that was paid that day. As we begin, I would like to recognize and bring up Chaplain Norm Powers, Law Enforcement Complete Chaplaincy of Sacramento, and ask for the audience to please stand up and remove your headgear as we recognize the chaplain.
Good morning. Appreciate y'all being here. We all have stories on where we were. Me sitting in my driveway, getting ready to go to work, I heard it on the news and was shocked, just in shock. So it was a day of remembrance for sure. So I'm proud to be here. You know, we see the ripples of that tragic day and the impact it still has 23 years later. Some know, but many wonder if there'll ever be an end to the violence, war, hatred, and death. We grieve over our world's inability to learn the answers that lead to peace. Let's pray. Well, Lord, on this solemn day of remembrance, may we honor the lives that were lost in this tragic act. May we give thanks to those who served and saved, rendered aid and assistance. May we give comfort to those who live with loss. May we seek justice and peace where it is within our ability and rely on you when the ability escapes us. On this day of solemn remembrance, may we continue to build what's been torn down. May we continue to mend what has been broken. May we live out your love when hate seems to reign. And may we bear witness to the cause of peace. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Powers. Please welcome the Sacramento Police Department Honor Guard as it presents the color guards. And then also please welcome the Sacramento, sorry about that, working on the details. Honor Guard, please step forward and present the colors.
Honor Guard!
Attention, move! Horse, forward! Forward, march! Bodyguard, halt! Left, face! Easy, forward!
Please follow me to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Bodyguard, order, forward! Right, face! Forward, march!
Can we please just give another round of applause for Julia Kennedy? First, I would like to introduce and bring up our speaker, Captain Doug Morris, acting captain for the Sacramento Police Department and is also a veteran of the United States Coast Guard. And if you could please sit down. And we're going to keep you at parade rest the whole time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Thank you for that introduction, Councilmember Robles. I want to thank our Sacramento Honor Guard for representing us here today. They always do such a great job and look so sharp. So their hard work and dedication really shows. This is a tremendous honor for me to be here with you all today. I want to thank Alex Alcantar and all of the Cal Expo staff who invited me. Special thank you to Cal Expo Chief Walton for having me here today. Thank you, Chief. As I stand here with you among the sobering reminders of the horrific events 23 years ago, during which time we all made a promise never to forget. I'm thrust back into a time of so many emotions and feelings. Feelings of shock, feelings of grief, and feelings of confusion. And in the following hours and weeks and years that were to follow, feelings of hope, of unity, and strength. And it is who we were as a unified nation when we woke up the morning of September 12th that defines us. Not the senseless act of violence that visited our nation the day prior. To the family and friends of the loved ones who were directly affected by the September 11 attacks, may the nation always hold you close in our hearts for all that you have endured. To all the brave servicemen and women at home and abroad who fight for the freedoms we hold so dear, thank you. There were countless stories of those who answered the call, some of which rushed to their local recruiting offices and signed up right then and there. Many of which paid the ultimate sacrifice for us here today. To the brave firefighters, police officers, and all of the first responders who were driven by one purpose on that day: to save lives, no matter what the consequences. We will never forget, and we will always be in awe of your level of servitude and sacrifice you showed 23 years ago. It's hard to believe that many aren't old enough to have an independent recollection of that day. Last night, my wife and I, we asked our 14-year-old, what comes to mind when we say 9/11? He quickly began listing off the images that we all watched unfold firsthand. As he spoke, it made me think of the various emotions and images that we all carry with us that signify that monumental point in our nation's history. Essentially, those memories are how we serve and honor those who sacrificed. I'll leave you with this. As we march towards what will soon be a quarter of a century since the attacks on our nation, I hope to see us continue to attend and support events like we are here today, as we continue to help our nation heal. In addition, please continue to honor and respect all who sacrificed by sharing with our future generations who we were as a resilient and unified nation that morning we woke up on September 12th. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Morris, for those beautiful remarks. Next, I would like to welcome our next speaker. Please welcome Jenny Carlson, Chief Consultant for the California State Senate Committee on Military and Veteran Affairs, and a United States Army veteran.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today. It is an honor. This is my first time speaking about 9/11, so bear with me. And I'm just grateful that today's verse of the day is from Matthew, and it's blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. And that gives me comfort today, and I hope it gives you comfort. On the morning of September 11, 2001, I was in my friend's car on the way to high school. I was in my senior year. We were probably running late. My 17th birthday was later that month. I heard a DJ describe the plane crash over the radio, and I thought it was a prank. Later, my teacher rolled the TV into the classroom, and we watched the towers collapse. I don't remember much from that day, but for years afterwards, around the anniversary of 9/11, I remember seeing the footage of ashy faces, broken walls, dogs sniffing through the rubble, people falling from buildings, and voicemails from victims to their family members. I remember the bravery of the police officers and the firefighters who rushed into danger. I also remember in the weeks and months afterwards, when my community and others around the country and the world rallied to support the victims of 9/11. They weren't alone. Mr. Rogers' mom told him as a child, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." I am grateful that there are so many in my community willing to help. Not even a year later, I joined the U.S. Army. I enlisted as a 14 Tango, a Patriot missile launching station operator maintainer. My first duty station was in Suwon, South Korea, where we had Patriot missile launching stations pointed north and ready to go on 3 different bases on the peninsula. Every 2 weeks, we would fire up all of our Patriot equipment and pull 24-hour shifts every 3 days. My crew chief in the beginning was Lieutenant Wolf, a young Filipino woman from Hawaii. She bought the crew pizza every single shift. It was just one of the many things she did to improve soldier morale. I remember a few months later when she got news that her husband, a Black Hawk pilot from Wisconsin named Jeremy Wolf, was killed in a Black Hawk crash when his helicopter and another collided over Iraq. I didn't really understand why we were in Iraq. The only news I got at the time was from Armed Forces Network. A few months later, our first sergeant announced that we had captured Saddam Hussein, and everyone around me cheered. I finished out the rest of my enlistment in Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas. In 2011, I was blessed with a student internship that turned into a career with the state legislature. Not only did that bring me here to speak to you today, as well as many other unique opportunities, it also enabled me to take a trip to Washington, D.C., where I got to see the Pentagon 9/11 Memorial firsthand. Like the steel beams behind me and the towers here and the globe there, it was also a very sobering memorial. It was a blessing that only 125 workers in the building died that day, as they had just finished renovations on that side of the building, and only a small percentage of the 4,500 employees had returned back to their offices. On that trip to DC, I was also blessed to visit the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, and I want to commemorate all of the Vietnam veterans here today, and all of the Vietnam veterans who have gone before us. Thank you so much. The purpose of the Vietnam Veterans of America remains in my heart. Never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. There are still people today who rush into disaster, just like those brave men and women in 2001, who risked their lives to save others in their community. My own American family is a testament to that. Both of my grandfathers served in the military. My dad served in the Navy on a sub that went back and forth to Guam. My sister joined the Air Force as a firefighter. It's a job where females are held to the same physical requirements as males. She served in overseas tour in Balad, Iraq. That same sister continues to choose public service and now works for Sac Metro as a fire inspector. Both of my younger brothers are police officers, one for Fairfield PD and one as a detective in Vallejo PD. I also have a brother-in-law who serves in Fairfield PD and another brother-in-law who's a firefighter in Pleasanton. I see them commit to their families and to their communities with equal enthusiasm, working to improve the lives of those around them while raising the next generation. Here in California, over 22,000 people currently commit themselves to serve in the California National Guard. They're a dual-purpose force that serves both federal and state missions. We have National Guard members deployed all over the world and across the state. Recently, just yesterday, the governor requested more Guard members to assist with the line fire in San Bernardino County. The California National Guard provides emergency response, works with local law enforcement and border control to combat drug trafficking, works with state agencies to combat cybercrime, among many other assets and capabilities. I just want to give a brief thank you to all of the National Guard members who are here today. Thank you. A few years after I got out of the Army, I received a Facebook message that a really good person I served with, Staff Sergeant Christopher Weems, had committed suicide. He was still serving in the Army at the time, had promoted a warrant officer. He left behind a wife and a child. A few years after that, I saw on social media that a very good friend I served with in both Korea and El Paso, Patrick from Huntington Beach, California, committed suicide on the anniversary of 9/11. He left behind a young son. If you would, please pause with me for a moment of silence to remember Patrick Christopher Williams. Thank you. The U.S. lost more military veterans to suicide in the last 2 decades than we lost in the wars. Just yesterday, my mother, who at 71 is still teaching at Solano Community College, spoke with a student over Zoom who had a family emergency. He just lost his brother, at 36 years old, a veteran, to suicide. The Apostle Paul wrote in 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2, I urge you first of all to pray for all people. Ask God to help them, intercede on their behalf, and give thanks for them. Pray this way for kings and for all who are in authority, so that we can live peaceful and quiet lives, marked by godliness and dignity. Today is a day of remembrance. It is a chance to take inventory of our own lives and be grateful for what we have and the community we live in. I am grateful that I recently became a mother to 2 children. Julia is 3 and Max turns 2 on Friday. I hope they grow up knowing they are loved, that they have hope and a future, and that just like the Vietnam veterans of America, their mom will try to ensure that no generations of Americans will leave others behind. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allison. And then thank you for your service, and thank you for answering the call thereafter. By show of hands, can all our veterans please stand up? Have you served in any of the military branches? We honor you and thank you for your sacrifice, and thank you for the families that have also sacrificed. And as we continue to honor those in remembrance for 9/11, we also honor those who serve. You talked about suicide, and it's way too common, especially in our military forces. And thank you for being vocal about it, because we need to address some of that. We need to address it so that we can save our battle buddies and so that we can protect our soldiers, so thank you. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge who's going to be presenting the Governor's Proclamation. Please welcome Deputy Secretary Xochitl Rodriguez-Murillo from the California Department of Veterans Affairs.
Thank you, Councilmember Robles. I'm going to hold the mic. I think it helps me out a little better. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation to read the Governor's Proclamation once again. I'm very grateful for this ceremony, for this opportunity for us to continue to educate and bring awareness to our community of the tragedy that impacted our lives, that impacted our nation. I'm very grateful to see students here. I, like Ms. Jenny Collison, was a 01 high school graduate, and at the time didn't realize how much of my college courses and political science courses would be surrounded by the topic of 9/11 and national security. And it was difficult in that we've seen over time, there's a lot of feelings that are internalized as a veteran. I served in Operation Iraqi Freedom, deployed overseas in 2004. And unlike my fallen comrades, I came home and have been very grateful to now serve in a role where I get to assist veterans and their families with the benefits and services that they so rightfully deserve. So thank you once again. Governor's Proclamation. On this 11th day of September, we mark 23 years since our nation came under devastating attack by terrorists seeking to destroy our spirit and cherished values. On Patriot Day, we honor the precious lives lost to this tragedy and the heroism of all the courageous first responders and civilians who rushed into harm's way to help others. Today, we also pay tribute to the selfless individuals who answered the call to defend their fellow Americans, unified in grief and unshakable resolve to protect our freedoms and our way of life. In the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, 776 Californians were among more than 7,000 Americans who died defending our democracy. With state flags at half-staff on this day of remembrance, let us honor the memories of those we have lost and recognize all the survivors and heroes whose strength and perseverance reflect the very best of our nation. Now therefore, I, Gavin Newsom, Governor of the State of California, do hereby proclaim September 11, 2024 as Patriot Day. Thank you very much. On behalf of Secretary Lindsay Sin, we're here at your service. Thank you.
And we have people come to accept that.
For our next speaker, I would like to introduce Mandy Russell, Executive Director and Chaplain for the California Chaplain.
I'm Mindy. So, thank you for inviting me to be here to be your keynote speaker and share with you how I actually responded to 9/11. That day was just amazing because 1 minute after the first plane went into the North Tower, I got the first phone call from Washington, D.C. and asked if I could get to New York City. The plane. And I said, okay, the reason why, sorry, this is.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank God. So the reason why I was even called is I was on a rotation with several other chaplains that was part of a group for the National Traffic Safety Board, the FBI, and American Red Cross to go to any kind of disasters that happen to be planes, trains, automobiles, pipelines, or vessels in the water. So my rotation, I was ready to go. I had my backpack on. I was ready to just jump on a plane. I had 4 hours to do it. And then lo and behold, I get the second call. And they said, get up here as fast as you can. So I was ready and I was going over to the airport, and then I get a call saying all planes are grounded. And I'm thinking, okay, how do I get to New York City? And so they said in the phone call, we don't care how you get here, just get here, and they hang up on me. So it was on my own to get out to New York City. So how I did it was in Travis Air Force Base, there was one plane authorized by George W. Bush. And that plane carried 32 people from California to go to New York City for search and rescue, and I got on that plane. So we were the only plane in the sky with fighters on both sides. We literally got there within 9 hours. We didn't have to ask how to get to New York City, how to get to Ground Zero. All we had to do is look at the smoke and follow that in. There was nothing on the Brooklyn Bridge. And you know that's one of the busiest bridges for New York. There was nothing there but officers and military every block to make sure we were authorized to get to New York City. Once I got there, these are the things that I remember. When we were flying, there was 32 of us, and every one of the officers and firefighters came over and sat with me and my partner and was basically saying, why are we doing this? I know we've got to do it. We're going to do it. But what if it happens in Sacramento? So we left with our hearts torn, thinking we might not ever see our family again for whatever reason. Because people, we were declared at war at that day. So I remember when I got there and I went on scene and I saw the smoke and I walked in the ash that just kind of floated around, and seeing these people that literally were covered with the ash and you could barely see their eyes, and they would walk up exhausted because they were working 13, 14, 18 hours a day, just literally collapsing in your arms, hugging you, thanking you for being there for them. What a humbling experience. And for days in and days out, we were part of a team that tried to rescue, though there was no rescue. When those buildings imploded and it was laying in that rubble, there was no desks, no phones, no curses, nothing. It was all just ash. I'm talking about right at ground zero, because there were different zones. There was a hot zone, there was a warm zone, there was a lot of buildings that were broken and hurt that day. Like ground zero was one we kind of focused on. I remember that after that I went with the mayor, and he asked me to work with the Family Assistance Center with the 5,000 family members that came every day. The 1,200 homicide investigators, the 500 chaplains that came from all over the United States, so that we could help them tell their story and tell their story well. I remember having the opportunity to sing God Bless America 1,000 times. We all sang God Bless America over and over again. I remember being driven to the police bureaus at 3 in the morning to 12 at night, encouraging those officers to keep going, after knowing that they lost not only friends, but probably family members as well. And so the memories are strong. In fact, this morning, as every year since the first year of our anniversary of 9/11, we have people that call each other, just checking on them. Had 22 phone calls or texts today. Officers, firefighters, military, family members, that would just say, hey, just checking in, I'm doing okay, are you doing okay? What are you doing today? And I said, I get to talk to people about 911, because I want you to know this. This is a day we should always remember. It changed America forever. It changed us forever. And it's our obligation and our challenge, people, to keep telling our youth why this day is so important. It's more than Patriotic Day. It should be Unity Day. Because after 9/11, we were all shocked and numb and in grief for our nation. September came, and it came in strong. And we all kind of stood shoulder to shoulder and we said, hell no! This will never happen on our watch again. Amen? Amen. And we got involved. And the neighbors got involved. And the people and everybody was now red, white, and blue. We had such unity that I've never seen before. Unfortunately, we need to pull that back. Don't forget 9/11, but please, people, don't forget 9/12. Because we have it in us. We, the Americans, have it in us to be able to love one another and to really live what that pledge that we just said is all about. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and life for all. And so I end with this. As I remember all of those things, I also reframe my brain with not the bad memories, but all the miracles of God showing up. Now I know one death is too many, but I'm telling you what, there should have been 20,000 people at ground zero that morning. There was not. Those buildings were vacant, most vacant, and so were the airlines. It's amazing how little of the people that were supposed to be there. I can tell you about the miracle of the angel cop that saved Mayor Giuliani's life. That stood there and said, sir, do not come down this tunnel. Go that way. And when he went that way, that's when the South Tower imploded right there. He would have died that day. I remember telling or hearing stories of people saying that somebody just grabbed their hand because the ash was so bad and they couldn't see anything, and so they grabbed his hand and reached out to him, and they're just being led along, and when they come into out of the tunnel, they see nobody holding their hand. Angels were at work that time. You see, we've got to believe that either God's with us or he's not. And he was. He was there all the time. He answered prayers like, Lord, we need to find in this room of 5,000 that lady named Sarah Saran We need to see her now. And she just walked with people. God is alive and well, and he loves this nation. And so when we talk about Isaiah 41:10, and we say, and we hear him saying to us, fear not, I am with you. I will give you strength. When I looked and arrived there that day, I literally said, God, I don't know what to do. There's so much to do. God said, one person at a time. Just one person at a time. And that's what we were able to do. One person at a time. One day we made over 400 death notifications. One person at a time. And when we made it, it was like it was the only person who would ever make a death notification. So when you remember 911, remember those images, yes. But remember that we were not alone during that time. And we're not alone today. And all the things, all the different emblems and symbols back in New York that keep reminding you, the tree that never fell, that was found in the rubbish, the cross that kind of came up out of the rubbish, that was perfect dimensions. All of these things, the church that didn't fall, the little church that stood, all of these are reminders that we're not over. America's not. And we've got things to do. So what a great day to start in your heart. That patriotic day means I am a patriot and I'm going to work to make this country a wonderful country. God bless America. And God bless you next.
Can we just give one more round of applause? I felt like I was at church right there. I really did, because God is very much alive, and our nation is very much alive. And as we continue for the next generation, my hope is that you would also remember 9/11, and that we continue to grow as a community and unite. I would like to bring up Jenny Carlson, who's going to be rendering the sequences of events, and as well as Phil Rios, who will be reading the consequences of events.
Sequence of events on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. 8:46 p.m. Sorry. 8:46 a.m. American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into floors 93 through 99 of the World Trade Center North Tower, killing 92 passengers and crew members. 9:03 a.m. United Airlines Flight 175 crashes into floors 75 to 85 of World Trade Center South Tower, killing 65 passengers and crew members. 9:37 a.m. American Airlines 77 crashes into the western facade of the Pentagon, Washington, D.C., killing 64 passengers and crew members. Oh, sorry, please stand. Plus 125 inside the Pentagon and wounding hundreds of military and civilian personnel. 9:59 a.m. South Tower of the World Trade Center collapses, killing approximately 600 citizens, New York City Port Authority, New York City police officers, and New York City firefighters. 10:07 a.m. United Airlines Flight 93 impacts into the ground near Shanksville, Somerset County, Pennsylvania, killing 44 passengers and crew members. 10:28 a.m. North Tower of the World Trade Center collapses, killing approximately 1,692 citizens, New York Port Authority, New York City police officers, and New York City firefighters. 200 citizens chose to jump to escape a horrible fiery death. 200 souls perished while trapped in elevators. They have filled us with all the consequences of events.
Thank you very Thank you. I'd like to recognize, I'd like to recognize some individuals in the audience. Steve Sprigg, he's current president, Association of the United States Army. Thank you. George Raya, he's Sacramento Community Representative LGBTQIA+. George, thank you, George. DFW Post 2073 Commander Elko, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Tim Tribble in the back, he represents American Legion, District 6. Thanks for your support. And a special shout out to students from Stockton, Weber Institute Health Academy, seniors from Stockton Unified School District, and she brings them down almost every year from Stockton. Thank you, students. And is this working at all?
No.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was an MP. This our man in the rest. Can you hear me? This did not happen by itself. I've been supporting the Cal Expo since 2014. In the past, there was a crew of 12. COVID, they went all away. This year, I want to give kudos to special efforts. It's not 12 people, it's like down to 3. Allison Whiteman, special assistant. Angel Seattle is a graphic artist. He's with the camera up there. Specialist Ford Jurgensen in uniform. He's currently attending California Military Academy as a cadet to become an officer of California National Guard. I salute you. And everything I've done has been in support as a volunteer to Cal Expo coordinator. This year it's Alex Alcantara. Everything is developed through him. Thanks. And I had a hard time sleeping. I had a hard time sleeping at nights, PTSD. That particular Tuesday morning, I woke up about, 4:30 a.m. I turned on TV. The first plane had hit. And the reporter said it was a Cessna or some small plane. I saw the size of that hole. That was not a small plane. I went to get a cup of coffee. I came back. I'm watching live TV. The second plane came from the right side of the TV screen and impacted the North Tower. Then I said, we're at war. I served and are now serving in harm's way in America and also overseas. In conclusion, a war that began October 7, 2001 as a result of terrorist attacks on 911 ended August 30th, 2021. OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan, 2,488 killed soldiers, 20,754 wounded, 18 CIA personnel killed, 822 civilian contractors killed. OIF, Operation Iraq Freedom, 6,840 killed in action, 31,000 wounded in action, who came home in striking shape. Pause to offer comforting prayers to the Gold Star mothers and fathers who have to feel the ultimate sacrifice and pain that endures to today. All gave some gave all, lest they never be forgotten. And American Legion Post 233, Deanne, and the VAC representative, Richard. Yeah, thank you for showing, and that concludes my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have a mic, so thank you, Mr. Rios, for your remarks. And thank you for continuing just to make sure that we have amazing events. So I would like to bring up Captain Morris, Jenny Carlson, and Chief Walton as they carry a and Baldwin Wong will perform the task. Please stand. Now, I would like to call up Alex Grove for the reading of the NYPD. If you please stay standing.
At this very moment, on September 11, 2001, New York City terrorist attack. Almost 3,000 people died. The New York City PD responded to the World Trade Center buildings in a show of strength and courage that earned us the respect of the world. 23 brave members did not return from Ground Zero. We honored them by protecting the American way of life for which they died on that day. They and each personify what is best about the city, this country, and our people. We observe this anniversary of the events on September 2001. Take pride in knowing that history will remember that the New York City principal part 2001. Sergeant John Hoffman, Sergeant Michael Curtin, Sergeant Rodney Gillis, Sergeant Richards, Diana, Police Officer John Villara, Police Officer Dans, Police Officer Jerome Dominguez, Police Officer Stephen Driscoll, Police Officer Mark Ellis, Police Officer Ronald Coughlin, Police Officer Thomas Lagon, Police Officer James Leahy, Police Officer Brian McDonald, Police Officer John Perry, Police Officer Glenn Petit, Police Officer Moira Smith, Police Officer Ramon Suarez, Police Officer Paul Police Officer Santo Valentin, Police Officer Walter Lever, Police Officer Robert Fazio. Rest in peace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious is that grace appear, the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound.
Round of applause for Miss Kennedy and Mr. York. So, at this time, I would like to, we have one more speaker, Chief Walton, who will be giving us the closing remarks. You can sit. I'm just so used to standing up all the time, so. Chief.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone who came out today to support the 9/11 Memorial, the September 11th Memorial, this memorial at Cal Expo, the largest 9/11 memorial in the Western United States. At some point, if you don't know the history of how all of this got here, you might want to take a look around and ask a few questions. Okay, honestly, I didn't do that. Does that mean I'm done for the day? Well, the mic is. I'd like to thank all of the dignitaries that came out today, the guest speakers, and all of you who are honored guests to be here. We appreciate you coming out. But before I leave, I have to tell one short story, and my wife is already rolling her eyes. I don't even have to look at her. Take a look around you and think about the serenity in this place right here, right now. Other than my loud voice breaking the silence, think about how nice. Listen for 5 seconds at how beautiful it is to sit here in the serenity. It's perfect, right? accept my voice. During the annual state fair this year, I had something really interesting happen that I had to share because it happened right here. I would come up here in the afternoons, check on the memorial, make sure that nobody was doing anything nefarious. That would be bad for some people who don't understand it. So we have bad guys and good guys, right? So I walk up here every day, I sat down on the bench in the back and spend a few minutes of my own time. The loud state fair going on in the background, sometimes a concert going over on this side. I walked up here one day and there's a young man standing here looking at the metal beam that's behind me. And I kind of watched him for a minute and he looks at me and he says, "Excuse me, officer," very polite. He says, "What is this? Did you tear down a building?" And I said, "Well, we didn't, the bad guys did." I said, "This is part of the September 11th memorial." And he says, "I don't know what that is." I said, "How old are you?" And he told me 15 years old. And I went, "How is that possible? I know you weren't here, but you had to have heard from it." He says, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Bad guys crash planes into those buildings in New York." And he looks at me and he says, "Oh, the 9/11 memorial. September 11th didn't ring a bell, but 9/11 did." So whatever we call this memorial, this coming together every year, it's not something we need to forget. It's something we continue to pass along. I'd also, before I walk out of here, Expo staff for making this event not only successful, but a very, very attractive event for us. I'd like to thank the management of Expo to make sure that this works every year. I'd like to thank my office staff who keeps you safe while you're out here. And I'd like to thank my wife of 35 years this month for supporting me through 38 years of being a police officer, a firefighter, and a paramedic. Without that support, we wouldn't be able to do the jobs we do. I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today. With that, I'll leave you.
All right, we have 5 more speakers. I would like to bring up Chaplain Norm Powers to give office benediction.
You know, I said when you drop the mic, it actually works fine. So it was a good thing. You know, it's funny, Phil, we were saying that we don't want to dwell on this stuff, but I'm telling you, when the sequence of the events was read, what flashed in my mind was watching the people jumping out the windows. And I've been a chaplain for 16 years, so trauma care chaplain deals with death all the time. But that, I could see it. What I remember. That's good. All day, glasses on first.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for your peace and comfort given to those who lost friends and loved ones on that fateful day, and for how you continue to give peace to those who seek it. I thank you for the courage displayed by those firefighters, law enforcement officers, and medical personnel who, instead of thinking of their own safety, rushed in to help others in need. As we've remembered the many who lost their lives through the evil actions of a few, I pray that we few will be the source of life and hope for many as we live our lives in such a way that reflects the goodness in our world rather than the despair. Help us be the bringers of hope rather than fear. Help us to exemplify dedication to courage and honor in times of war, periods of peace, moments of terror, by our commitment to love and compassion in response to attitudes and actions of hate. Finally, Lord, I pray that as we leave this place of remembrance, that you'll continue to bless us, bearers of goodwill, bless our first responders as they may put their lives on the line daily, and please bless the United States of America. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain Powers. As we conclude this event, I just want to special thank you to American Legion District 6 Vietnam veterans for American Chapter 500 and Veterans Foreign Wars Post 2073 Elk Grove. Thank you to the California State Floral Association, and thank you for everyone for being here today. We conclude, and you have a blessed day, and we remember everybody who's